Well, thank you guys for coming tonight. It's really cool. We had our vision night last week, our first one, and we had a lot of fun. And so we were excited about this one tonight. And so as we talk and as we share our heart, share what's going on here at Stonehill Church, feel free to continue to eat. Feel free to, if you need to get some seconds or whatever during especially DJ's part, feel free to get up. That'd be great. But we're really excited about what God is doing. And if you sat through the services on Sunday morning, you've heard a lot of our heart. You've heard some of the reasons why. But what we wanted to make sure is our church was all unified and tracking together on really what we're being called to do, what God is calling us to do, the why, the what, and then how are we going to do it. So that's really what we want to do tonight is walk through the why, the what, and the how. And we're going to have a couple people come up in a minute that will help share some of it too. But DJ and I just wanted to start off and begin with the why. Like, why are we doing this? And the reality is it comes back to even what we talked about this morning. It comes back to the fact that we want everyone to know Jesus. And that's why we exist. That is why we are here. And we really, whether it's a first-time believer, and by the way, today there were 7 people in the services that were baptized and 7 people in the services today that gave their life to Jesus Christ for the first time. And that's what it's about. And I love, if you guys were here this morning, you saw the video that we played, and the boy who was talking about his dad, and his dad was a Christian. He's like, it's not just on Sunday, it's every day. And it was really, really cool because that's what it's all about too, is that our faith is not just here on Sunday mornings at Victory Middle School, but throughout the week. And so I think God has been planting this seed in many people's hearts for a while. But specifically for me, and if you're here this morning, you heard the story of kind of how God was sharing or God was moving us. But God moved my wife and I here 13 years ago to the south side of town. And so for the first 8 years, we drove to southeast Boise and we helped lead a church there. And then for 5 years after that, we drove up to North Meridian to help lead a church there. And all of that was amazing and awesome. But there came a point where God was saying, it's time. It's time to plant something here in this community. And somebody's got to do something about this. And so my wife and I, along with several other families, many of you that are here tonight, took the next step of faith and said that we need to start a church. You see, there's not a lot of churches here in this area. I mean, there's a few good churches, but there's not a lot. I mean, if you compare it to schools, I mean, they were continuing to build schools. They can't build schools fast enough to keep up with the population. And the same thing is true for churches. There's just not enough churches. There's not enough empty seats for the people that need Christ in this community. And so the reality is this. We have to have a building. We have to. We have to have a building to meet in. It doesn't have to be the most amazing structure in the world. It's not like our desire is to build some amazing building and people drive by it on Sundays and they say, wow, look at all that stucco and look at that landscape. God is so amazing. You know, that's not really our heart. Our heart is for them to drive by, to walk inside and look at the people and the changed lives and say, God is amazing. So we need it. So we're going to talk real quick about 4 main reasons why we need to have a building and take the next step of faith in permanency. Here's the first one. We're blessed with this facility, but it's not a long-term option for us, okay? Some of you might ask the question, why do we have to do this? Like, why now? We're only 1 year into the church or 15 months into the church. Why do we have to do this right now? Most church plants at this point wouldn't be at this level of looking for permanency so quick. Well, what I would just say to that is, we're not most church plants, okay? I mean, if you think about it, most church plants at this point would be about 50 to 75 to 100 people. We're running around 850 people, and that doesn't make us better or worse. That's just the way it is. But the reality is this. If we were to be displaced today, it would be much harder for us to find a building or a facility to meet in than a church that was running 50 or 75 or 100. And so we have to factor that in, and God is calling us to be good stewards and to think ahead and begin to plan for what could be next. The principle from the very beginning, the whole story of how we even got to school is amazing. and what God had done. I mean, if you know the story, we were praying about a facility. We're looking, and there are people going out and searching and praying and researching and doing the steps to find a building, and nothing was popping up. And I was getting a little worried, and my wife and I were sitting there on vacation, and the principal of the school called me up and said, "Hey, Doug, the school is yours if you want it to rent out." It was just this amazing thing that God had done. But from the very beginning, the principal said that this wasn't going to be a long-term option. Now, a few months ago, I talked to him, and everything's going great. I told him we're beginning to pray for land and pray for a facility, and I told him it's going to be about 2 to 4 years, and he said, "That's great." He asked me if there's anything that we need, and then I asked him if there was anything that he needed, and it was just a great time. We had talking together, but it was confirmed at that point that this was not going to be a long-term option. And so that's one of the reasons. We have to start planning and thinking about what is next.
Yeah, which is really cool in the context also of what we talked about this morning. And if you weren't at service, basically we hit on this whole idea that Joshua had to prepare. God asked Joshua to prepare to cross over the Jordan, to begin taking on that promised land. Now, again, we want to throw out the caveat of we're not saying that God has promised us land. What we are saying, and we have said since week 1 of this series, is that God is with us. That's the promise that we've been landing on. God is with us. He will not leave us. He will not forsake us. He was with Moses at the bush. He's been with us all along. He's been with us as we've grown, with Doug when he kind of gave him the vision of starting Stone Hill. And we believe now that the elder team, the leadership team, the staff, all of us, it's so cool. We didn't share this last week because it hadn't happened, but we had planned a staff advance probably in February, right when I came on. We planned a staff advance or staff retreat, whatever you want to call it. And we didn't have the foresight to go, this is what we were going to do right now. But this last week, we went on that staff advance. And it was so amazing to see and to pray and ask God to give us unity and more vision. And we sat around, basically it was this downstairs area, and all the team with spouses, which was really cool, sat around, and we just got to dream a little bit more of what would happen if. What could it look like? What could it be? And the excitement around the table, the excitement around sitting in that circle was so big. It was so big. It was awesome. And that's why we wanted to start with why. There's a great book out there called Start With Why by Simon Sinek. If you've ever read, he's not a Christian author, but it's a phenomenal book. We have to start with why, the real why of it. But it's been amazing to see how God's already been putting it on in a unifying way, the hearts of all the leadership here for us to move forward. And this whole idea of preparing is so big because of the process. 2 to 4 years, that's a long process. It's not something we snap our finger and it's going to happen. It's something that's going to take some time, prayer, thought, wisdom, discernment as God leads us in this direction. And so that's why we're starting now. And then also to consider things like the setup and tear down and the wear and tear that happens, not just on the physical equipment. Like this stage, even after a year, is already creaking and falling apart. And we've already had to replace several parts. Wires, cables, lights, all that stuff, all of it falls apart way faster being set up and tear down. But more than that, and more important to us, is the people. The wear and tear and the burnout that happens on our setup and tear down team and all of our teams for kids ministries and everything that has to happen. I grew up I pretty much grew up. I was a part of a church for 15 years where we ultimately moved to 5 services. And what happened with the staff in that moment and the volunteers and the leaders is when you have 5 services, you begin to pseudo implode. You just can't keep up that kind of clip. And so even when Doug and I first sat down, that was one of the things that we said is we want to be in stride with what God's doing. We want to try never to fall back or try to run ahead, but be right in stride with his footsteps and where he's taken us. And we want to be careful not to come to a day where we're having 5, 6, 7 services. Now, if we have to do that, we'll do it because we're going to see this community change for Jesus. But we also at the same time want to find that balance of not imploding staff and volunteers and the burnout factor that happens. Like we get here at 6 a.m. to have a 9:30 service. It's crazy. 6 a.m. to have a 9:30 service, and often we're here till 1:30 before we can leave. And that's not an excuse. That's not complaining. That's not being like, oh, how can we? It's cool, but it's also something that, again, that's not a long-term plan. That's not a setting yourself up for success when you come to looking 5, 10, 20 years down the road of what God may be doing at our church. And so it's exciting.
And then finally, one of the things that we were dreaming about at the staff retreat advance was we're really limited on discipleship opportunities, places to meet, to grow. And so we began just dreaming and talking about, like, what could God do? And we began thinking about things like vacation Bible schools and discipleship opportunities that we could do during the week of men's and women's. And we talked about stuff like preschools and just different things like that. And we don't know exactly what God is leading us to at some point. But the reality is this: we only have this building one day a week. And so it really limits us on what we can do throughout the week. And we want to also be a church that uses its building for our community, to have community outreach events and allow the community to come in and use it in a wise and a good stewardship type of way, but to come in and us to be a light to the community by them allowing, or us allowing them to come in and be part of our building. So there's just a lot of cool opportunities that we could have if we had a building.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, too, is as we talked, and we've hit on, and we haven't done a big ask yet, outside of this morning, we kind of begin to put it out there as far as a financial ask of what God's calling us to do, the $1.5 million over 18 months. More than that, and I hope you see our hearts from the very beginning, that the prayer bands here, the devotionals, the 4 points of prayer that we ran out of, so some of the tables don't have that. You can find it online of the points that we'd want you to stop and pray over our community and pray over what God's doing here in South Meridian and be with us, because if it were just about, hey, can you give us your money, man, would we miss it. We would totally be missing it. But we've known, and we want it to be from the very beginning, that not only would God grow us and take us to places from a financial standpoint, which is important if we want to accomplish some of the things we want to accomplish, but perhaps, well, not just perhaps, for sure, more important is that spiritual component. That God would grow us spiritually in and through prayer, in and through worship times like this, in and through being challenged in our faith. And that's just one thing that we really wanted to make sure happened in and through this Promises Initiative, is that we were challenged with our faith, and we're growing in our faith. And so we just kind of want to point that out and just really say that, in and throughout this journey, let's be challenged in all areas of our walk with God. And let's see what happens in 18 months. We're excited to see that.
Yeah, that's awesome. So what we're going to do right now is, first of all, DJ talked about the 4 points of prayer. One thing that we would love for you to do is take an hour in the next week, because we're really trying to get everybody to do this before November 4th, which is Saturday. Go ahead and get with your friends and your family, or you can do it by yourself, and drive to those 4 points, which are on the insert there. And again, if you don't have one at the front tables, we also have it online on our website. But go and pray for the request and really lift that up to God. Lift whatever God wants up for our church and ask Him for His will to be done. Now, what we'd like for you to do right now is take about 2 or 3 minutes, and we're going to ask one person at your table. And we're going to ask one person at your table, if you feel comfortable, to pray for or pray with your table, and pray specifically for this, that God would continue to give us guidance and strength to be a light in our community. Okay, so maybe one person offer themselves up to pray, and just take a couple of minutes, and that'd be great. So go ahead and take a minute to do that.
I used to live like I was under attack, dodging arrows from my past.
All right, all right, all right, all right. So here's a question: which table prayed the best? All right, good. We just wondering. Well, we talked about the why, but now we want to talk about the what. And if you've been here for a few weeks, you probably already know the what. But just in case you haven't been here for some reason, what is this? Is that we are praying for God to give us either land or a building. But we have to feel like God is asking us to take the next step to begin raising the funds to be able to do that. So really what we're beginning to do is set a goal to raise about $1.5 million in 18 months to put towards land or an existing building. And so the boundaries are this, kind of where we're looking, and we're open-handed with this, but this is our prayer. The boundaries are this: between the highway all the way to Amity on the south, and then 10 miles to the west to Cloverdale to the east. And that's kind of what we're praying for, is that God would provide something in that area or close to that area. And again, we're open-handed to what God wants, so whatever he's leading us, but that's our prayer. So we're really looking forward to that. And you want to introduce this man right here?
Sure. All right, everyone say, what's up, Chris?
What's up, Chris?
What's up?
Chris is special. We've been told, by the way, that we look like brothers.
He is special.
No? Who's better looking? Be honest. All right, no? Nothing? All right.
Hair, no hair. Hair, okay. Beard, no beard.
Never mind. Nothing. All right, so this is Chris. Chris is the chairman of our elder board, which is really great. Has a lot of background in business and owning businesses, and a great leader, spiritual leader in his house. And it's been amazing getting to know this guy since I came on in February. His heart. But I wanted Chris, and we wanted Chris to come up to share a little bit of what we've done so far, just to give a little bit of context to the work and the energy and effort that we've done to kind of get to the numbers that we've gotten to and why the boundaries. So can you just share a little bit, like, what have we done so far as a leadership team, as a staff, to get 1.5 million and the boundaries and who we worked with and all that?
Yeah, so first thing I'd want to say is, for a lot of you, I know that we've talked about this for a month and a half maybe, on doing the vision nights and the Promise Initiative and things like that. But we've really been kind of behind the scenes, really in prayer, talking about this since probably back in February, March, right after DJ came on, and we were running 600-700 a weekend at that point, and so we saw things moving, and we were like, okay, we need to really seek God's will and what he wants us to do with this church. And so we got together, we started praying at meetings just around, like, God lead us to what we need to do. And so we started that. We had a process.
We went on elder retreat to McCall over one night and just asked God, what are you wanting to do with the church? Which was that was probably one of the bigger moments of kind of pressing us forward into permanency and other things that we felt God calling us to, which is cool.
Right. And so coming out of that retreat, we really all left on the same page on what direction we're going, and we felt that God was leading us in. And ultimately, the building that we're looking at doing it's not just to have a building. The whole purpose of the church that we all feel very strongly about is bringing people to know Christ and discipling them. And so to be able to have a facility where we can use throughout the week, that really helps us out with that. But anyway, steps that we've done to kind of get where we're at. It initially started, we found a piece of property on Linder and Overland back right at the beginning when we kind of started deciding we're going to research this a little bit more, because we wanted to find out what was going on in the market. And then we looked at construction costs. We looked at potential leasing of spaces. And we looked at every single thing that's on the market right now and since probably March or April, of what could be bought and what could be rented. And ultimately found out there's a high cost for buying land right now, and there's a high cost for construction, which we already knew that going into it. But then we thought potential on the leasing of spaces, and there's not very many buildings that are big enough to do that. So, there really wasn't an option there. We actually ran into some companies that wouldn't even lease to a church. They didn't want a church in their facility. We found a couple spaces that actually probably would have worked, but they decided they didn't want us there. And so, not that we were going to make any decisions at that point, but it was just good to know so that when we come and we communicate with the church, things that we're looking at doing, and ultimately where we got to this point right now, we had more information for you guys. And we pray about it, the staff prays about it, you guys pray about it, we love the input from other people, and so we appreciate that. But before we give a lot of information, this is why we're doing this now, is because we can come and say, look, we've done all of this. And so the most recent thing is we met with Mark and John Bottles. I'm sure basically everybody in here knows who he is, who they are. They're the probably largest commercial real estate brokers in Idaho. Had a meeting with them. They gave us some insights on some things and their abilities, and their abilities not only for things that are on the market, but their knowledge of where things are going in the path of growth, potential for non-listed properties that we could look at and things like that. They gave us a lot of really good information, and so
that might have been the coolest part of meeting with John and Mark. John is Mark's son. Is not only could they tell us and had great wisdom on realty, they're in the know of where the growth is happening, just like Chris said, but it was impressive. They're like, oh, that's going to be built here, this is going to be here, this is a great place to probably plant a church because we know this is going to happen over here, and we're like, oh, it was like, this is awesome. And probably the coolest, even outside of that part, was the fact that Mark was like, hey, can I just pray for you guys? And he led us, like before we could even ask if we could pray for him or anything, he's like, can I just pray for you guys in the search? And that for me personally was like, check, we got you. Like, you're the guy for this, because of his heart. And you could just see right away that it wasn't just about a commission for him. I don't even know if I never got that sense of that from him. It was about also the mission, because he's a Christ follower, of getting more churches in this valley, which is really cool if you think about that context. And so,
yeah, I thought the same thing. I've never been to a business meeting where somebody who is your client or potential vendor would just be like, hey, can I pray for you guys when we leave? And so I know myself, DJ, and everybody else who was there was pretty stoked about that, I guess you could say. So
nice, I'm rubbing off on you.
Yeah, right? But so that's where we're at right now. We're still in the research phase, but we have a good idea of what it's going to cost to buy 5 to 10 acres. We have a pretty good idea of what it's going to cost to build a building, and so now it's just putting faith in God that he's going to deliver, that we're going to continue to walk side by side with him as he leads us, and just pray for his will to be done. And so that's really what's happening here.
Right, and of course that begs the question, if you haven't able to put 2 and 2 together, that $1.5 million is not going to get us land and a building. It's our first step. Again, this is the preparation piece to it, to actually get to the full blast, buying land to buying building to building a building, all that stuff, or renovating a building. We're looking at more, but this is what we feel God's calling us to now. And then future forward, we're going to just ask and seek God and other people in wisdom and counsel of what would be next after that. And so this is really step one of what we're doing. Hey, everyone give Chris a hand.
So the next thing is we have, is it Jeff? Jeff? But Jeff, where you at? He's coming. He's getting coffee. It's pretty cool. While Jeff's coming up, one thing I would like to say too is this: is part of the thought is this: is oftentimes churches when they build or they buy land, they're building and buying for like the biggest thing they can do at the time. And really, our heart for our church is not to be a mega church in one location. Our heart is that we would spread throughout this valley in multiple locations or multiple churches. And so when we look to like land and facilities, we're not necessarily looking to have this mega building. So that's really important to understand too, because number one, that cuts down on cost. And number two, the ability to get into a building probably quicker than if we're looking to build like this mega building. So Jeff's up here, and Jeff is our finance guru. He is a super huge blessing, just like Chris and Jeff and all of our elders. They have put hours and hours and hours and hours of time into all things church, but Jeff specifically our finances. And so we've asked Jeff to come up here and just kind of talk us through the finances, where we're at now, what do we have, and then moving forward, kind of what we're looking at. So,
well, thank you, Doug.
No problem, Jeff.
I appreciate that very much. So in our elder meeting, we were obviously talking about the Promise Initiative, and it really was something that was very forward-looking, right? So what we're doing right now is going to be going over the next 18 months, and we thought it was important as well to take a few minutes to talk about where we are today financially and kind of where we've been. And before discussing this, I just wanted to take a few minutes as well and just start by giving, like we did last week, God the praise for what He has done here at Stonehill financially. I've had the opportunity to sit on other financial boards, both church and non-church, and honestly, to see what God has done here has just been almost nothing short of miraculous. It's really amazing. And His work in moving amongst the hearts of the people here in this congregation and giving back to Him has been really a blessing to witness. And so, first of all, I just wanted to start with that. I think some of the words we'll use, like, I'm talking from my perspective, or about us as a board, or about you as a church. And really, all of those pronouns are not very good, because we really understand what God has done here is very special. So just wanted to kind of start out by saying that. Those of you who didn't know, or might be new, or don't know a little bit of the history, I wanted to kind of roll back time a little bit to find out where we started financially as Stonehill. And that goes back to last year, about in May, when Rock Harbor basically gave us Doug and $150,000. And I joked last week that maybe we should have held out for more money. But anyway.
Because of me.
Yeah, so.
I didn't think that was funny, by the way.
Actually, I never thought about it from the perspective of because of the skill, we could have got more money. I just thought they were trying to get rid of you. So
They're trying to make fun of you.
I know.
No, that's, yeah.
Anyway. But it was right about that time in May that we all sat around. I think there were 5 of us at a time, and we were trying to make the determination of, what was our budget going to be. And we didn't really know what to expect. We didn't know how many people were going to walk through the door. And so I think I have on there that it was our initial budget attempt, because we only knew a couple of things. One of the things that we knew is that we wanted to kind of keep our first fruit tradition, is what we called it. Rock Harbor had taken 11% of whatever they got in that wasn't dedicated money and set it aside to do something with. So we know we wanted to do that. We know we had rent here at this facility. And we also knew that we had payroll. We had Doug full-time, Trev half-time, and that's really all that we knew. And so we started out with an initial budget last year of about $21,000. And we were hoping by the end of the year that we would probably be able to match what Rock Harbor had donated to us, was somewhere right around $150,000. And so that's what we set our initial budget on. And it was really within about the first 60 days that of opening the doors that we realized that the hearts of this congregation were a lot bigger than our minds could wrap around. And you guys just poured forth gifts in ways that just was really amazing. And our total giving for last year, I gotta kind of take a quick look back here. We doubled basically what we expected in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, and qualify that too. That's not a full year. That was from what date to what date?
Yeah, it basically was when we started in September through the end of the year.
So that's why the numbers didn't, maybe in your head, some of you financial people, 21,000, 140, that's why those didn't match, is because it's not a full year. That didn't start till July.
Yeah, exactly. And so combined with what Rock Harbor gave us, we literally started in September, end of the year, with almost $500,000, which was just really amazing. The great thing about that was we were able to move into 2017 with about $100,000 surplus. One of the things that allowed us to do as we started seeing that last year in October was we started talking to this guy in San Diego. And I think it was right around this time last week, if I remember, Doug. I think he turned us down, actually. And so it was kind of a bummer. But we convinced him that the cost of living here was less and that it didn't snow very much. And so one of those things were true. One of those things were true. But anyways, we got him here kind of really, it was through sort of that effort. As well, where we're at today, if you want to turn the slide, Erica. Basically, year to date so far, we just eclipsed around $800,000 at the end of September. Our surplus this year so far is right around $200,000 as well. And so the question really comes up, what have we done with all your money, right? We have some accountability there. I kind of say that facetiously, but also with a lot of seriousness, is that we have a lot of accountability to you guys on what happened with that. One of the things that's not on the slide that I really wanted to mention as I started thinking through this last night, as I was thinking about this, is that one of the things that has happened is that through your generosity, it's really helped us increase our planning and strategic thinking. One of the things that was really evident this week at our elders retreat was really trying to think ahead, try to get ahead of ourselves, get ahead of where we are. How do we handle what we're doing? And it really, through your generosity, has allowed us to do that. So thank you very much. The other thing I just wanted to mention, and just some really quick bullet points here, is in our general fund right now we have about $30,000 of working capital. So these are the things that we kind of use as float for our bills and things like that. We also have a discretionary fund that's a little over $70,000 that we use for, buying new chairs, buying technology, being able to give more hours to people, that kind of thing. We also have a reserve account that we, as a board, thought would be a super good idea to do. It's kind of along the Dave Ramsey thought process of having an emergency fund. And so we basically got 3 months of operating expenses that we have put away. So in case perhaps maybe someday this building burned down, hope that doesn't happen, and we have to find an emergency location, something like that, we'll have the funds to do that. So we set aside that amount of money a few months ago. On my next slide, as I talked about before, we have restricted funds, and so these are funds that we've brought in that are either earmarked for something that we don't spend anywhere else. So far in our First Fruits Fund, on a lifetime, we've had about $110,000 put in that fund. We've spent close to about 40 now. We divide those funds up into mission and outreach, so we take 50% of that 11%, and we have a team that's led by Connie Johnston. I don't think she's here tonight, but she has a group of people that decide where we're giving that money. We give it both locally and globally. And so right now we have about $26,000 in that fund. We also have a church plant fund, so 40% of the dollars go into that of our 11%. Right now we have about $43,000 in that. And then we also have a benevolence fund, and 10% of the money goes in there for, people have needs that we can meet from our body or outside of our body. That's where those are used from as well. And then we also have a lot of other special offerings and programs that we have as well. So last slide, before everybody goes into a coma on this nice number detail. We started this discussion by looking back to now and kind of looking from now forward financially in this Promise Initiative. I just wanted to bring up a couple of things. So I just wanted to let you know one more time that we remain steadfastly committed to continued accountability with you in what you're giving. And that just means transparency. If you ever have a question, please ask. If you ever want to know where we're at, please ask. On this Promise Initiative, we're going to be very verbal about kind of where we're at, and there'll be periodic updates and that kind of thing. Also wanted to let you know that if you have any special circumstances and you want to talk to somebody about it, please let me know. If you've got any non-cash gifts, for example, you got property stocks, that kind of thing. You can't take any teenagers or other kids, but if you have anything like that that you are interested in donating, please let me know. If you happen to have as well any large contributions, or if you want to start maybe a strategy for yourself on how to give over time, I've kind of been through a lot of that with a lot of people, setting up giving funds and things like that you can give that way as well. So let me know. And lastly, one last thing. I don't know if we talked about the website. We're going to talk about that tonight? Yeah. So anyways, there's going to be a contribution page on that as well. One of the things that I didn't mention last week that Kristen reminded me of was that if you could, and when you sign up for this online, is to consider giving via an e-check. That doesn't cost us anything. Typically, if people like to give by credit cards to get miles and that kind of thing, which is a cool thing to do, but we get dinged about 3% on that. I also found a new little button on our website as well, on our financial giving, that you can actually pay for that fee now, too. So if you still want to get your miles or your points and you want to pay by credit card, there's a little button you can click and actually pay the fees. So anyway, I think that's it. I'm just excited of what God's doing, and that's it.
Yeah, it's awesome. Give Jeff a hand.
Hey, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. He's put so much time, energy, and effort, and again, Doug already said it, but the elder team and the staff, and it's been incredible to see what's been happening here. But the website is called thepromises.church, so www.thepromises.church, and it basically has what we've talked about tonight laid out, the why, the what, the how, the pledge cards in digital format, a button to give and all that stuff is all linked throughout that. You could get there through our website. If you forget that, you could just click. It says the Promises Initiative, and it'll direct you to that website instead. But we just kind of wanted to share a little bit of what we're asking. And I guess this is really what we're asking, is that all of us that call Stone Hill your church, that you'd be with us in this. Whatever that looks like, that you'd be with us, that everyone would be involved in this, because it is an everyone type of thing. This is not something that it's going to take one person or two people or three or just the staff or just the elders. This is us together, which is really cool. And I want to challenge that this is why I believe, I get asked all the time, if God doesn't need our money, then why does he ask for it? I believe he asks for it because he knows that when we put ourselves into something, then we become part of something. And that's what I believe he's doing here at Stonehill, is that he's asking us to be a part of something that's bigger than ourselves, because, again, not one of us is going to be able to accomplish this ourselves. But it's going to take a team effort, and throughout this whole entire journey over the next few years. And so we would love everyone to be a part of it. And I wanted to show you this breakdown. It's also part of on your giving card there, or the pledge card. This is something that we saw, and we thought it was really cool, just from a practical visual standpoint. Now, it's obviously not going to break out perfectly like this, but if in every single one of these categories, people were to give this much, or family units were to give this much, that's the total, and it breaks down to $1.5 million. And Doug and I, when we first came up with this, we kind of asked ourselves, who would give $250,000? And what we came up with is looking at each other and going, we don't know, but God does. And that was that weird place of faith going, okay, God, how much do we step out? How much do we, keep caveating of, and just going, you know what, we're going to put it out, and God, you show up. I mean, that's faith. It's saying, God, we're going to step out, we're going to believe, and then your part is to show up. And so this is us stepping out, and this is the breakdown, and we're going to believe that God's going to show up. We don't know how, we don't know what it's going to look like, but we believe some great things are going to happen there. But we wanted to say, don't fear. This is not something that we're going to keep talking about. Doug mentioned this in the message this morning, that I feel like Stonehill and being a part of churches and some that talk about money way too much and some that never talk about it, which is also bad. I think Stonehill has found that balance of talking about finances enough for it to be a challenge, but not for it to be a hindrance. Is that a good way to say it? We want to be able to challenge, but never for it to be, I don't want to go to that church. I don't want to invite someone to church because all we ever do is talk about money. After this week 4, after next week, and celebrating what God has done, we're not going to talk about it all the time. We're going to give updates on where we're at so that you feel that we're being accountable and all that stuff, but we're not going to talk about money all the time. So please know that we will have that balance, and we have lots of checkpoints to make sure that we won't go on one side or the other, but we're going to be careful of that.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. It's really cool. Well, I kind of went in with this idea, and this is a big deal. This is a big deal for us as individuals. This is a big deal as a church, and I'm just excited about it. And this past week, God began to kind of stir in my mind. Okay, Doug, what are you going to do? Like, what are you calling me to do? And so whenever my wife and we have big conversations or big things that we have to decide on, we always have what we call a kitchen table conversation. Does anybody else have anything like that where you sit down? For some of you, it might be in the living room. It could be in the bathroom. I mean, I don't know. Just wherever you might have these serious conversations. And so since my wife is not in here, she's out there doing some work, I've asked DJ to kind of take the role of my wife. Is that okay? Okay, cool. That would be awesome, man. That's good. You just happened to have that laying back there. That was awesome. It is. So Heather, you're looking really like muscular today.
Oh, Doug. Gosh.
So this is some of the questions and some of the things that we would talk about when it comes to big decisions, and this is gonna be really hard to take you serious, but. So I call my wife Lover, so I'm like, hey, Lover, what have you been praying about for this decision? How has God been leading you for this?
I can't even see. I don't know, Doug. Whatever you want to do.
Okay,
Whatever,
all right,
Doug.
all right. And I would ask her a question like, hey, baby, do you have a number in your head? Has God been leading you to a number? I mean, what have you been thinking about? And dude, you got stuff all over your hair. It's
like Velcro when you're bald.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so we would have these conversations, and we would sit down at the kitchen table. We're going to sit down this week and kind of finalize the conversation because we've been talking about it. And we're going to talk about what God is calling us to do when it comes to this decision. And we'll talk about things like, we're already giving our tithe and giving. So what is God asking us to do above and beyond our tithe? And we'll talk about things like that. Then we'll think through the next 18 months. We'll think through the next tax seasons because we get a refund because we have like 30 kids, and so we get a refund. And so we'll think through things like that. We'll think through if anybody would receive a bonus. We'll think of things like if we were to make commissions, and we begin to think about things that maybe we don't need the next 18 months. Or we'll rethink our vacations. Now, we'll still take vacations because we think that's a priority for our family, but maybe we can rethink where we go or what we do and still have a great time with the family. But I think really what the question is for us is, what is God calling you to do? We don't want to sit up here. We don't want any guilt at all. We want to inspire the entire church to be part of this because of the greater good of seeing lives changed for Jesus. And that's really what it's about. So what we're going to ask you to do in the next week before Sunday is have that kitchen conversation with your spouse, or maybe if you're single, friends, or maybe bring some accountability in and maybe have somebody help you with your finances and just say, what can I do above and beyond the tithe? What can I do to be part of this Promises initiative? And we sit down and we pray God, and we pray to God, and we ask God to stretch our faith. I know He will, and I know He'll show up. And here's what the power is, and DJ just said this, is when each family, with each individual steps up and is part of this, and everyone is having a kitchen conversation this week, and I believe God will take everything that we do and what we give, and just like the fish and the loaves, when Jesus was feeding the multitude of people, He multiplied that to accomplish His will. I believe that God is going to multiply what we're able to do to accomplish His will for this church, for this time, and we're going to see some amazing, amazing things take place.
Yeah, absolutely. And so on your tables, and we handed these out this morning, and we'll hand them out next week again if you forget them, but having that kitchen conversation, would you go home, pray about it again? Something we want to also, and it's a hard conversation, we're just going to have the table conversation here too a little bit, and that is, being mindful of your giving now, that if you just stop giving what you're giving now and then you just give to the Promises Initiative, that's going to, from a budgetary standpoint we have now, that's going to really, for lack of better words, mess things up on that end. And so what this is, again, is really asking above and beyond your giving now, your tithe now, so that way God could continue moving us forward, because otherwise it's just taking from one to another, and that honestly that just won't be beneficial. And so write, your name and the info that's up there, and then that total 18-month giving estimate. What would that look like? And the reason we wanted to break it down and have you break it down, all you're going to do is take that giving estimate and break it down based off of maybe, again, the tax season coming up, or a Christmas bonus that you might get, or whatever it might have, and it's going to help us plan. And that whole idea, again, of preparation, the whole idea of what we talked about this morning is going to help us go, okay, what's next for Stonehill from a leadership standpoint here and planning standpoint? That's what that means for us, because we believe that that you guys are people of your word, and we'll look at that number and go, okay, this is the step we're going to take in faith. And so so that's what we're asking for. Bring that card back next weekend. If you're not here next weekend, you could bring it back the weekend after that, or go fill it out online. Again, that promises.church, thepromises.church. You can fill it online, and that'll help us big time. And then also to celebrate together what God's going to do.
Awesome. So here's the thing. If you have any questions at all about anything, would you please come and talk to us, any of the elders, DJ, myself, the staff, and really ask us. And here's the thing. If you have any questions or if you have any concerns, would you come to us first before maybe you go talk to someone else? And here's why. Because maybe you have something that God has given to you to let us know, and it's more important maybe to come to us before you kind of start talking to other people, and then maybe the understanding of what's going on is really not out there. And so we would just ask you to do that. We want to be open-handed in this, and so if you have questions, you can email us at doug@stonehill.church or DJ at imtoocoolstonehill.church, something like that. And just let us know if you have any questions, and just continue to pray for what God's going to do. So this is what we're going to do to end the night. We're going to ask the worship team to come up, and Evan, and we're going to take some time to do some prayer and worship, and then we're going to pray some more and worship, and we'll be done for the night. And I just want to say thank you for coming out tonight. I know Sunday nights are hard sometimes. The World Series is going on right now, and I'm sure the Astros are going to win, so it's okay. And we'll keep on moving on, but thank you guys for making this a priority tonight, and we're just going to continue to pray and worship the Lord.